The Galactic Senate chamber was louder than a storm. Thousands of alien leaders shouted, argued, and demanded their voices be heard. The chamber, a vast dome of light and shadow, shook with the weight of their words. Translators buzzed, lights flickered, and the air seemed heavy with anger. But then, silence fell. It came suddenly, as though the universe itself had taken a breath and held it. The great doors at the back of the chamber opened with a deep groan. Every senator turned their eyes toward the entrance. A figure walked inside. At first, many did not understand what they were seeing. The figure was human, a species thought too weak, too simple to ever matter in galactic affairs. And yet this human was different. He moved with calm purpose, his step steady, his eyes cold with focus. His name was Commander Jace Arden. But it was not Jace alone that froze the chamber. Behind him, dragged by heavy chains, stumbled another figure. His wrists were bound with iron cuffs glowing with suppressive energy. His head was bowed, his crown torn away, but there was no mistaking him. The Emperor of the Dominion. The most feared ruler in the galaxy. The one who had conquered hundreds of worlds, enslaved entire species, and sat untouchable for centuries. Now, he was on his knees, pulled forward like a broken animal by the hand of a human. Gasps shook the chamber. Voices broke the silence. This is impossible. It cannot be him, surely a trick. No human could do this. The Emperor lifted his head, his eyes burning with rage and humiliation. His lips pulled back in a snarl, but the chains rattled louder than his voice. And still, Jace walked. He said nothing as he crossed the center of the chamber. His boots echoed on the polished stone floor, each sound a hammer against the silence. Senators leaned forward, their scales, feathers, and fur twitching with disbelief. Humanity was a minor species, tolerated but ignored, always mocked for their fragility. Yet here, before all of them, a single human had done what no fleet, no alliance, no army had achieved. Jace stopped in the very heart of the chamber. He stood tall, his face calm, his eyes sharp. For a long moment, he simply looked around, letting the weight of the moment grow heavier. The senators could not look away. He dropped the chain, and the Emperor fell to his knees. The sound of iron striking the floor echoed like thunder. You wanted to see what humanity is capable of? Jace's voice was low, steady, carrying across the chamber without need of amplification. Look. The words cut deeper than a blade. Simple. Sharp. Whispers spread like fire. How could a human capture him? Where are the Dominion fleets? Why did no one stop this? This changes everything. The Emperor tried to speak. His voice, once powerful enough to command entire armadas, now trembled with fury. This Senate is blind, he roared. You think this animal defeated me? Lies. You are being deceived. But his words only revealed his desperation. No one had ever seen the Emperor like this, stripped of his pride, shackled, brought low before those he once ruled through fear. Jace did not argue. He did not boast. He stood in silence, his presence more commanding than the Emperor's rage. That silence was heavier than any speech, heavier than any weapon. It told the Senate one thing clearly: humanity no longer stood in the shadows. The senators shifted uneasily. Some looked at Jace with awe, others with fear. The chamber seemed smaller now, the walls closer, as if the universe itself was bending around this single moment. In the high seats, an elder senator with silver skin whispered, "If one human can do this, what will happen when all of them rise?" No one answered. The silence deepened. The Emperor's chains rattled softly as he struggled, his pride bleeding away with every breath. Jace remained still, his hand resting loosely by his side, his eyes fixed not on the Emperor, but on the Senate itself. He had brought the galaxy's greatest tyrant to his knees, not to kill him, not to claim a throne, but to show the truth. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not simple. They were something far more dangerous. The chamber's lights flickered, shadows stretching long across the floor. The silence pressed down heavier than the storm that had come before. Every senator in the galaxy understood in that moment, nothing would ever be the same. And Commander Jace Arden, the human who had done the impossible, stood alone in the center of it all. The chamber of the Galactic Senate had never been this quiet. Even when wars were declared, even when planets begged for help, voices had always clashed like storms. But now, silence ruled. And at the center of it, on his knees, was the Emperor of the Dominion. His wrists strained against glowing chains. His once bright robes were torn, his crown gone, his face pale with rage. The senators stared, their hearts pounding. For centuries, they had feared him. Entire fleets had burned at his command. Worlds had been reduced to dust with a single order from his throne. Yet here he was, chained, humiliated, dragged like a prisoner by a single human. The senators whispered in disbelief. How is this possible? He cannot be real. This must be a trick. No force in the galaxy could bring him down. But they could see it. This was no illusion. The man before them was no actor. It was him. The Emperor snarled, his voice echoing through the chamber. You fools. You think this human defeated me? I allowed this. I came here to show you all that I cannot be broken. The words trembled with fury, but his eyes betrayed something else, fear. He pulled at the chains again, but the suppressive cuffs glowed brighter, stealing his strength. He had ruled for centuries with unshakable power. Now, he looked small, weakened, desperate. Commander Jace Arden stood silently beside him, his face unreadable. He had not spoken since those first words, look. That silence made the Emperor's anger seem weaker. Every time the Emperor shouted, Jace only stared at the Senate, his calmness louder than any cry. Senators leaned forward, unable to look away. Many of them remembered how their own species had been broken by the Dominion. They remembered surrendering, kneeling, giving tribute. Now they were watching the same fate fall upon the very man who had demanded their obedience. An old senator with scaled skin finally spoke. His voice was careful, almost fearful. Human, how did you do this? Jace turned his head slowly toward him. His eyes were cold, steady. That is not the question, he said. His voice was calm, but it carried across the chamber. The question is, what will you do now that he is no longer untouchable? The words struck deep. The senators shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between Jace and the chained Emperor. The Emperor roared in defiance. Do not listen to this creature. He is nothing. His kind are nothing. They are frail, fragile things that break under the weight of the stars. But the senators were no longer certain. They had seen the chains. They had seen the way the Emperor's knees shook as he struggled. And they had seen the human standing tall, unbroken, silent but powerful. Jace finally looked down at the Emperor. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard it. You fear humanity. That is why you tried to erase us from history. That is why you told the galaxy we were weak. Because you knew what would happen if we ever stood up. The chamber froze. Every senator remembered the propaganda spread by the Dominion, humans as servants, humans as irrelevant, humans as nothing. But here stood a man who had torn down the lie with his own hands. The Emperor's face twisted with fury. Lies. All lies. I will not be judged by this animal. You think one human can destroy an empire? Pathetic. Jace did not flinch. His voice cut through the air like a blade. I did not destroy your empire. I showed the galaxy that it can be destroyed. The words echoed like thunder. For the first time in living memory, the Emperor fell silent. His mouth opened, but no words came. His eyes darted across the chamber, searching for support, for loyal voices to rise in his defense. But none came. Not one senator spoke for him. The silence was worse than the chains. The senators, once terrified of angering him, now looked at him with something new, disgust. Some even smiled, small and cruel, as they watched the tyrant tremble. A senator with feathered wings leaned toward his neighbor and whispered, all these years, and it took a human to bring him down. Another, with glowing eyes, murmured, perhaps humanity was never weak. Perhaps we were too blind to see. The whispers spread. Jace said nothing more. He only let the Senate see the truth for themselves. The Emperor was broken. The Emperor tried one last time to rise. His legs shook, his chains rattled, but he managed only to lift himself halfway before collapsing back to his knees. The sound of his fall was like the fall of an empire itself. And in that moment, every senator in the chamber knew the same truth. The Dominion would never be the same. The galaxy would never be the same. And humanity, once ignored, mocked, and dismissed, was now the name on every tongue. The Senate chamber did not return to chaos. It remained silent, heavy with the weight of history. The Emperor of the Dominion, once untouchable, once feared as the shadow above every world, now knelt in chains. The senators stared, hardly believing what their eyes showed them. But shock slowly shifted into fear of something new. A senator with silver horns leaned forward, his voice breaking the silence. If the emperor can fall, then who holds power now? The question spread through the chamber like fire. Some senators whispered to their aides. Others began speaking across rows. A few stared at Commander Jace Arden, standing calm and silent, as though he were the center of a storm. The feathered senator who had spoken earlier finally raised her voice. This changes everything. We must decide what is to be done with him. She gestured toward the emperor, who glared back with fury but said nothing. His silence was more dangerous than his shouting. Even weakened, even bound, he radiated a dark force, a reminder of what he had once commanded. Another senator, tall and thin with glass-like skin, shook his head. No. We must decide what is to be done with them. His long finger pointed at Jace. The chamber murmured with unease. Yes, another voice added. The emperor is no longer the question. The question is humanity. A cold shiver spread through the Senate. For centuries, they had dismissed humans as unimportant. Many worlds did not even know humans existed anymore. Dominion propaganda had erased them from history, leaving only rumors and whispers of a forgotten race. And now, a single human had shattered the lie. What if there were more? What if humanity had strength the galaxy did not yet understand? The scaled senator spoke carefully, his voice wary. If this man could do what none of us could, capture the emperor alive, what else are his kind capable of? All eyes turned to Jace. He did not move. His hands rested calmly behind his back. His expression was the same as it had been since he entered, steady, unreadable. The silence made him larger, as though he carried something even heavier than the chains on the emperor. At last, the emperor laughed. It was bitter, sharp, filled with venom. Yes. Now you see it. The danger is not me. It is them. You think this man is your savior? No. He is a warning. Humanity is a disease that will spread through your stars. Crush him now, before it is too late. The senators stirred. Some nodded nervously. Others frowned, unwilling to echo the words of a tyrant they had feared for lifetimes. But the seed of suspicion had been planted. The feathered senator slammed her wing against her desk. Enough. You would have us fear a single man when we should be celebrating the end of your rule? But the thin glass-skinned senator replied coldly. Is it truly the end of his rule, or the beginning of something worse? Empires do not fall without something stronger rising in their place. The chamber filled with uneasy whispers. Jace finally moved. Slowly, he stepped forward, the sound of his boots echoing on the stone floor. The senators fell silent at once. Even the emperor's laughter died. Jace's voice was calm, steady, but every word carried weight. You think humanity wants to rule you. We do not. We did not fight for conquest. We fought to survive. He turned his gaze across the chamber, letting his words settle. For generations, the Dominion hunted us. You told yourselves we were weak. That we were gone. But weakness does not survive centuries of fire. Weakness does not chain tyrants. The senators leaned closer. His words struck deeper than they expected. Jace continued. You want to know what humanity is capable of? Look at him. He gestured to the emperor, still kneeling in his chains. We are capable of ending fear. Of ending silence. Of showing the galaxy that even the strongest can fall. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the old scaled senator whispered, if what you say is true, then the galaxy must choose. To stand with humanity or to fear it. The dilemma hung in the air. The emperor, still on his knees, smirked. And they will fear you. That is the truth of it. They always fear the strong. His words were poison, but they carried weight. The Senate knew fear well. They had lived under it for centuries. Could they trust a new power rising from the ashes? The feathered senator stood tall. I will not trade one tyrant for another. The human has shown us courage, not chains. Perhaps it is time we follow an example of strength without conquest. The chamber erupted with arguments. Some senators agreed, voices sharp with hope. Others shouted against it, filled with suspicion and fear. The noise rose until it shook the very walls. And yet, through it all, Jace remained silent again. His stillness was louder than their storm. At last, the Senate Speaker, an ancient being with crystal eyes, struck the gavel. The chamber fell into uneasy quiet. We will deliberate, the Speaker declared. The fate of the Emperor. The future of the Dominion. And the place of humanity in this galaxy. The Emperor's chains rattled as he lifted his head, his eyes burning. Yes. Decide quickly, little fools. For no matter what you choose, the galaxy will burn. And as his laughter returned, a dark truth lingered in every senator's heart. Whatever decision they made, the galaxy would never return to what it had been. The Senate chamber had adjourned, but the storm had only just begun. The corridors of the Senate hive, carved into the cliffs of the capital world, buzzed with movement. Senators hurried with their aides, speaking in hushed voices, each group forming private circles. The grand speeches were over, now came the quiet war of whispers. Every senator understood one truth: the Dominion was broken. The Emperor's chains proved it. But a broken empire left a vacuum, and in that vacuum, power shifted like sand. In one hidden hall, the feathered senator gathered her allies. She was called Serena of Kareth, known for her fierce honesty. Her wings trembled with energy as she spoke. We cannot let fear rule us again. The Emperor fed us fear, and it chained us all. Humanity must not be treated as the new enemy. If we do, we learn nothing. Her aides nodded, scribbling notes, but her fellow senators were less certain. A scaled veteran senator hissed quietly. Your faith in the human blinds you. Do you not see? If one man can bring down the Emperor, what would a fleet of them do? Serena snapped back, her feathers bristling. Then perhaps we should ask what stopped them from coming sooner. Perhaps humanity chose survival over conquest. Perhaps they are not like him. Silence followed. Hope was a fragile thing in these halls, easily crushed by suspicion. Elsewhere, another gathering whispered in darker tones. The thin glass-skinned senator, Valen, spoke to a circle of worried faces. His translucent skin caught the light like fractured crystal. Do not be fooled. Humanity hides in shadows. They have returned only when the Emperor's rule cracked. That is no coincidence. They waited, and now they come to take what we bled for. A senator with iron-plated skin growled. Then what do you suggest? That we strike at him here? In the heart of the Senate? Valen's voice dropped lower, sharper. I suggest we prepare. Allies. Weapons. Words that paint them not as saviors, but as threats. If the galaxy fears them, the galaxy will unite against them. That is how we survive. The group murmured in uneasy agreement. Seeds of a coalition were planted. And while senators plotted in shadow, the Emperor himself sat in a guarded chamber deep within the Senate complex. His chains were heavy, forged of rare alloys, designed to hold even the strongest. Yet his eyes burned with the same fire that had once bent worlds to his will. Across from him stood Commander Jace Arden. The two stared at each other in silence, the weight of centuries of conflict between their kinds pressing down on the moment. At last, the Emperor broke the quiet. They think they are free. They are fools. You have merely shifted their chains. Jace's voice was calm. And you have lost yours. The Emperor's smirk widened. Do you truly believe you have one? Look at them. Already, they fear you more than they feared me. Fear binds tighter than iron. They will beg for my return before they ever trust humanity. Jace did not answer. His silence was stronger than argument, but the words cut deep. He knew they were true in part. The Senate was divided, suspicion already growing. The Dominion might fall, but mistrust of humanity could spread faster than any victory. The Emperor leaned forward, his chains clinking softly. You want peace. You want them to see your kind as more than weapons. But they will not. They never will. You will always be fire in their eyes. And when fire spreads, it burns everything. For a moment, Jace's jaw tightened. He felt the old memories, burned cities, broken families, the endless years of hiding. Humanity had endured, yes. But survival had not erased the scars. Still, his voice was steady when he spoke. Then let them fear. Fear is not the same as submission. And if humanity must walk through fire to prove we are more than you, then so be it. The Emperor's laughter echoed in the chamber, dark and bitter. Meanwhile, in a different wing of the Senate hive, the Speaker met privately with select senators. The Speaker's crystal eyes reflected the flickering light as he spoke. The Dominion cannot survive as it was. The Emperor is gone, yet the galaxy trembles. If we choose wrongly now, war will rise again. One senator whispered, and what of the human? What role does he play in this future? The Speaker paused. That is the question on which all else depends. The night stretched on. Across the Senate hive, alliances were whispered into being. Some sought hope in humanity. Others sharpened suspicion into weapons. And far above, in the skies of the capital world, fleets circled uneasily. Soldiers, commanders, and spies all waited, listening for the signal of which way the Senate would lean. Jace Arden stood alone in his chamber, watching the stars through a high window. The weight of the galaxy pressed on his shoulders. He had not come to rule. He had not come to be a symbol. But now, unwilling or not, he was both. The Emperor's words rang in his mind, "They will fear you more than they feared me." And Jace knew the Senate's decision would not only shape the fate of humanity. It would decide whether the galaxy saw humans as liberators or as the next empire to fear. The day of decision came. The Senate hive was alive with tension. Thousands of voices filled the grand chamber, but the sound was not harmony, it was chaos. Every senator, every aide, every whisper carried the weight of history. At the center, the chained emperor sat in silence, his face unreadable. He was both prisoner and shadow, his very presence a reminder of the past. Around him, senators argued, their words rising like weapons. The Speaker's staff struck the floor, calling for order. The Senate will decide. The galaxy waits for our voice. Shall humanity be recognized as ally or condemned as threat? A wave of sound erupted. Senator Serena of Kareth rose first, her wings half spread, her feathers quivering. Her voice was sharp, urgent. Colleagues, for centuries, we bowed under the Emperor's cruelty. He promised us safety, and gave us chains. Now humanity has broken those chains. Will we repay courage with fear? Some senators nodded, others hissed. She raised her hand toward Jace Arden, standing at the edge of the chamber. Look at him. A single human stood against the one we feared most. He could have come to conquer, but he came alone, with no army. If we call him enemy, then we prove the Emperor right, we prove we are slaves of fear still. Applause rippled, but it was drowned by a harsh voice. Valen, the glass-skinned senator, stood, his translucent form glowing with anger. Fools! Do you not see? This is no act of mercy. It is strategy. Humanity has hidden in the shadows for centuries, waiting for this moment. You cheer one man, but behind him how many ships? How many weapons? How many worlds waiting to strike? The chamber shook with shouts. Some senators cried for hope, others for caution. Jace stood in silence, listening. He could feel the fear in their voices. To them, he was not only a man, he was a question. And questions frightened more than answers. The Speaker called again for order, but voices only grew louder. A senator with iron-plated skin rose, his voice like grinding metal. The Dominion is broken. If we trust humanity, we risk a new empire rising from its ashes. We must unite against them, or the galaxy will kneel once again, this time under human chains. Cries of agreement followed. The air was heavy with division. Then Serena's voice cut through the storm. And what if you are wrong? What if humanity does not want to rule? Shall we turn them into enemies by calling them one? Shall we create the war we fear? The Senate chamber was a battlefield now, words as sharp as blades. At last, the speaker raised his staff high. His crystal eyes glowed with authority. The time for debate has passed. We will vote. The galaxy demands clarity. A hush fell. Senators moved to their stations. The chamber dimmed, leaving only the glowing orbs above each seat. Each orb would light green for alliance, red for condemnation. Jace's heart pounded, though he showed nothing. The Emperor's smirk widened, enjoying the theater. The vote began. One by one, orbs lit across the vast chamber. Green. Red. Green. Red. The chamber pulsed with the rhythm of decision. From above, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Fleets in orbit waited for the outcome. Worlds across the stars tuned into the broadcast. Billions watched as their leaders chose humanity's fate. The numbers grew closer, neck to neck. Hope and fear wrestled in glowing light. At one moment, green surged ahead, then red caught up. The tally tightened, each new vote a knife's edge. Jace did not move. He knew that no speech, no plea, could change this now. It was no longer about him. It was about what the galaxy wanted to believe. Finally, the speaker's staff struck the floor. The vote is complete. Every eye turned to the great display at the chamber's center. The result flashed, evenly divided. Gasps rippled through the Senate. Equal numbers, green and red. The chamber froze. The speaker's voice trembled for the first time. The Senate is deadlocked. The decision falls to the speaker's hand. 1,000 voices erupted at once. Some begged for alliance, others demanded condemnation. The speaker stood alone, the weight of the galaxy pressing on him. Jace's eyes met the speaker's. No words passed, but the silence between them spoke volumes. And then, from the shadows, the Emperor's laughter broke the chamber. Look at you. You cannot choose. You are weak without me. And you, human, you will learn what I already know. They fear you more than they ever feared me. The speaker lifted his staff high. The chamber stilled. The speaker will decide. Billions across the galaxy leaned closer to their screens. Fleets prepared to fire or to stand down. Allies and enemies held their breath. The speaker's voice rang clear. Humanity shall be recognized as. The chamber lights flickered. The sound of alarms cut through the hall. A voice shouted from the comms. Emergency. Unknown fleet entering orbit. The speaker's words were lost in the sirens. The Senate fell into panic. And Jace Arden knew, in that moment, that the decision would not be made by votes alone. The alarms screamed through the Senate chamber. Red lights flashed across the walls. Senators shouted, their voices colliding in fear. The speaker tried to call for order, but the sound of sirens drowned his words. On the holoscreen above the chamber, shapes appeared, dozens of ships cutting through the darkness of space. Their design was unfamiliar. Sleek, angular, and silent. The entire Senate froze. The Emperor's laughter carried above the chaos. There. Do you see? Not even time to vote before they reveal themselves. Humanity's fleet arrives to claim its throne. Gasps spread like fire. Senators turned on Jace, their eyes filled with terror. Some shouted for guards to arrest him. Others demanded weapons be raised. But Jace stood still, his gaze fixed on the holoscreen. He had never seen these ships before. They were not Terran. Serena leaned close to him, her voice urgent. Tell me these are not yours. They're not, Jace said quietly. But they came now, on this day, for a reason. The chamber descended into madness. Half the Senate screamed for immediate defense. The other half called for retreat. The speaker's staff struck the floor again and again, but no order returned. Then the ships sent a signal. The holoscreen flickered, and a figure appeared tall, armored, its face hidden behind a mask of shining black. Its voice echoed, cold and commanding. People of the galaxy, the Dominion is fallen, but you are not free. We are the Heirs Legion. We carry the Emperor's blood. His rule will not end. Kneel now, or be destroyed. The Emperor's smirk widened into a grin. He raised his chained hands and shouted, "You see, even in chains, my legacy commands the stars. You cannot escape me." Panic consumed the chamber. Some senators collapsed in despair. Others demanded the execution of the human immediately, to prove loyalty against this new threat. But Jace Arden stepped forward. His voice rose above the storm. "Listen to me. These ships are not human. They belong to what's left of the Dominion. This is not humanity's war, it is yours, and mine. Together." The speaker hesitated. His staff trembled in his grip. He looked at the senators, then at Jace. "You say humanity stands with us. Prove it." All eyes turned to Jace. Billions across the galaxy leaned closer to their screens. He took a breath. "Then free me of your suspicion, and I will free you of his shadow." He pointed to the Emperor. The guards shifted uneasily. The speaker raised his staff, and at last, nodded. "Release him." The shackles fell from Jace's wrists with a heavy clang. The sound echoed like thunder. The Emperor's grin vanished, replaced with fury. "You dare," the old tyrant roared. "You trust him over me? He will bring your ruin." Jace turned to the Senate. His voice was firm. "If you still fear me, then do nothing. But if you believe I stand with you, then give me command of your defense. Let me fight with your fleets, not against them." Silence. Then Serena spread her wings wide. "I stand with him." One by one, others followed. A senator of stone rose. A senator of flame bowed. Slowly, the chamber lit with voices of support. Not all, many still glared with suspicion, but enough. The speaker lifted his staff. "So it shall be. Humanity will fight at our side." The chamber roared not with unity, but with a choice made. The holoscreen flickered again. The masked commander of the Air's Legion sneered. "You choose the human. Then you choose death." The fleet moved. Beams of light tore through orbit, striking against planetary shields. Explosions shook the skies. The Senate panicked again, but Jace was already moving. He called for Serena. Together, they rushed toward the command wing. Alarms followed them down the halls. Above, the Air's Legion pressed the attack. But for the first time in centuries, the galaxy did not kneel. Fleets of every world launched in defense. Alien ships rose, battered but defiant. Jace stepped onto the command bridge. His voice carried like steel. "Form a line. Protect the civilians. Break their wings, not their will." The battle began. Through the vast windows, the Senate world burned with light. Enemy ships clashed with defenders. Shields cracked. Engines flared. The Emperor's laughter echoed faintly from the chamber below, but it was drowned by the roar of war. Jace guided their fleets like a conductor. He knew nothing of alien ships, yet his instincts cut through chaos. He read the enemy's patterns, saw their weakness, and struck. "Drive them into the asteroid field," he ordered. "Cut their formation." The defenders obeyed. Piece by piece, the Air's Legion began to break. Their arrogance met resistance they had not expected. Aliens united under human command. At last, the masked commander's voice returned, distorted with rage. "This changes nothing. The Emperor's blood will rise again." Jace's eyes narrowed. "Then let it rise in ashes." With a final strike, the defenders destroyed the Legion's flagship. Fire tore across the stars. The remaining ships scattered into darkness. Silence fell over the bridge. The galaxy had survived the first storm. Back in the Senate chamber, the speaker stood tall. "The vote is no longer needed. The galaxy has seen the truth. Humanity is not our enemy. Humanity is our ally." The chamber erupted, some with cheers, some with bitter silence. But the decision was made. The Emperor, still bound, spat in fury. "You think this is victory? He is no savior. He is only the beginning of a darker age." Jace looked at him, his voice steady. "Maybe. But it will not be your age." The guards dragged the Emperor away. His laughter faded down the corridors. Jace stood in the center of the Senate, the weight of billions on his shoulders. He was no longer just a man in chains. He was the bridge between fear and hope, war and peace. And though the battle was won, he knew the war for trust had only begun.